Alright, today we are doing day 2 of sections 10.1 and 10.2. Today we are going to transform inequalities in order to solve them. So we are still solving inequalities and graphing them. Today's will just take more steps. To warm up, let's remember what we did at the end yesterday. We had to solve these inequalities and graph their solutions. So we first need to get x by itself. And in order to do that, Connie, what should I do to both sides?
You should add 10.
Thank you. Add 10 to both sides. That gives us x is greater than 30. So that's what I need to graph. I make a number line. I'm going to put 0 towards the left side. On this one I would count by 10s, but if you want to count by 5s or something else, that's up to you. As long as you're using the same increment every time. Alright, then we have to put a point. Delaney, should it be open or closed? Open. If we do not have an equal to bar on our inequality symbol, then our point or circle is open. And then we have to decide which way to shade. Carl, should I shade to the left or the right? Which way? The right. We would read this as x is greater than 30. Greater than, it means we shade to the right. Alright, on our second warm-up, we are still trying to get x by itself. So we split up our equation. Tariana, what should I do to both sides? Close, divide by -3. Okay, when we do that, we have x, and over here we get a -7. Who can raise their hand and tell me what special thing I need to remember on this problem? Keon. Flip what around? The sign in the middle needs to flip around. If we divide both sides by a negative number, we have to flip the inequality symbol around. If you multiply or divide both sides by a negative, it switches your inequality symbol. Alright, on this one I'm going to put 0 over towards the right side. And I'm going to count by 2s. Let me move my line up a little bit. There we go. Alright, if you want to count by something different, that's fine. I chose to count by 2s. Deja, where would my point go here? Very good. Right between the 6 and the 8. Nevaeh, should my circle be open or closed?
Closed.
Why did you pick closed?
It should be open, never mind.
Why open?
Because it doesn't have a line under it.
Very good. If we do not have the equal to bar, we leave it open. And then we have to decide shade left or right. Jamaro, what do you think?
I don't know, too. All right.
We're going to shade to the right. X is greater than -7. To help us out with that, we can remember that if our variable is on the left-hand side, we shade the way the arrow is pointing. If we look at our inequality symbol like a little arrow. Alright, that is it for the warm-ups. There aren't any real notes for today because we are just practicing doing the same thing on these problems, solving for the variable, graphing our solution. So there's no new notes. We're doing the same stuff we did yesterday. It's just going to take more steps. We are going to go through and do the even problems together first, and then I will give you time to go through and try the odd problems on your own, and hopefully we'll have time to compare with a partner. Alright, so we are going to do the evens together. So we will come back to all the odds. On number 2, I am trying to get the variable u by itself. Does anyone want to volunteer to tell me what they think I should do first? Ellie. The 2 is positive, so I would subtract 2 on both sides. We want to zero it out. This minus sign is going to stay with the 3u. When we divide, or sorry, we're not dividing it. When we subtract 2 on both sides, 8 minus 2 gives us 6. So we are left with negative 3u is less than or equal to 6. But we still need to get u by itself. Kelby, what should I do next? Divide by negative 3. So we have u, and then 6 divided by negative 3 is negative 2. But if I divided both sides by negative, everybody tell me what has to happen? That was not everybody. Let's try that again. Everybody tell me what needs to happen? Well, that was a little better. We'll work on it. The sign flips around. It changes. So now we have u is greater than or equal to negative 2. Alright, the only thing we have left to do now is graph it. Hopefully the graphing part is the easy part. Hopefully, once we get this far, we just know what we're doing. 0, negative 1, negative 2 on my number line. Natalie, do I want an open or closed circle? We want a closed circle at negative 2. Jakeem, should I shade to the left or to the right? So how do we decide which way to shade? Okay, good. The sign tells us. So at the very last step, we have u is greater than or equal to negative 2. So we don't look at the sign from the top. We want to look at the sign from the very end of the problem. And this one tells us greater than, so we shade to the right. Alright, we are going to go ahead and go to number 4. That would be the next even problem. Does anyone want to raise their hand and tell me what they think we should do first to get n by itself? Lexi. Wonderful. We are going to multiply both sides by 11 to get rid of that denominator. So when we do that, we don't have to distribute the 11 to the numerator. I still see people wanting to do that. Those 11s are just going to reduce to 1 on the left side. That was the whole point in multiplying by 11. 2 times 11 gives me 22. Danielle, what should I do next?
Subtract from both sides.
Wonderful. We subtract 10 from both sides. Do I need to flip my inequality symbol? No. If we're adding or subtracting, we definitely do not flip it ever. All we're doing is adding or subtracting. We don't flip it. Also, we didn't flip it up here because we multiplied both sides by a positive. So that's not going to change it either. Alright, then I believe we are ready to graph it. I'm going to count by 4s on my number line. If you want to count by 2s or 3s, that would be fine also. Ooh. There we go. Alright, then we have to decide if we need an open or closed circle. Ryan, what do you think?
Closed circle.
Very good. We have that equal to bar, so we need a closed circle at 12. And then we have to decide to shade left or right. Ellie, can you tell me which one you think it should be? To the left, this would read n is less than or equal to 12. Less than, we shade to the left. Alright, on to number 6. On number 6, our first step, we actually have an option on what we want to do here. There are two possibilities for us. Does anyone want to raise their hand and tell me what they think we should do first or what they would like to do first? Nobody. Natalie. Good. Distributive property is one good option. So we will go with that one. If we distribute the 10, that gives us 10k plus 70. Again, distributing is not going to change the inequality symbol, so it's still greater than negative 70. The other option in this situation would be to divide both sides by 10 at the very beginning. I like distributing. It tends to feel more natural to us on most of these problems. Alright, once we distribute, then we have to start getting k by itself. Lexi, what would you do next?
You subtract 70 from both sides.
Wonderful. Subtract 70 from both sides. That leaves us with 10k is greater than negative 140. Our next step to solve, Houston. Right now we're multiplying the 10 and the k, so how would we do what? Divide by 10. Okay, that's going to give us k. That would be a negative 14. Is my sign going to flip? On this problem, our sign does not flip because we did not divide both sides by a negative. The fact that this 14 came out to be negative does not matter to us as far as flipping the sign goes. It will matter to us when we put it on a number line. Alright, let's make a number line. I need some negative numbers. Let's see, I'm going to count by 5s. If you want to count by something else, that's totally fine. If I count by 5s, can anyone tell me where I should put my point? Ryan? Just before the negative 15. Very good. Logan, should it be an open or closed circle? Open circle just before 15. And then we have to decide if we're shading left or right. Shannon, what do you think?
Right.
Shade to the right. K is greater than negative 14. We shade to the right. Wonderful. Any volunteers to tell me what they want me to do first on number 8? Keon, what do you think? Multiply both sides by 16. I like that plan. That gives me 16. And then on the other side we would have x minus 1. Alright, so right now we leave it alone. The sign does not change when we multiply by a positive. I still need to get x by itself. Kion, how would I do that? Add 1 to both sides. I like it. That gives me 17 is less than or equal to x. But Deja already told us we don't want our variable on this side, so we have to flip the whole entire thing over, which includes flipping the inequality symbol. Alright. We have to make a number line. Again, count by whatever you want to. I'm going to use 5s again on this problem. Jalen, where should my point go?
Right.
Go past the 15 a little bit? I would agree with that. It's not exactly in the middle, but it's pretty close to being in the middle of 15 and 20. Jamal Dixon, should my point be open or closed? Closed point right about there. And then I have to decide if I'm shading left or right. Keon, what do you think? Shade to the right. Once we flip it around so the variable is on the left, this says that x is greater than or equal to 17. Greater than means we shade to the right. Let's jump up to number 10. Starting with number 10, we see problems where we have variables on both sides. But we don't want that. We want all our variables to be on one side. So does anyone want to volunteer and tell me what they think I need to do? Alright, so we've got two possible ideas. Both of them are mathematically correct. One option is to add 3 to both sides. We could do that. The other idea is to subtract n from both sides. Now we learned, and I like to get all my variables together before I do anything else. So I'm going to choose to subtract n from both sides. Part of what makes this problem a little tricky is that what happens with these n's? They cancel out on the left, and what about the right? What's n minus n? Still 0. They cancel out on both sides. If they cancel out on both sides, that's fine. They both zeroed out. Just write what you have left. So what's still going to be on the left side? Anybody? The negative 3. What's still going to be on the right side? A negative 3. Is my sign going to flip? No. So I end up with a statement that doesn't have a variable in it at all. This is when we have to decide if it's no solution or all real numbers. We have two options. How many people believe right now that this is no solution? How many people think it's all real numbers? How many people have no idea how we're supposed to decide? It's okay if that's the case. Does anyone want to defend their answer? Deja, defend your answer.
Well, I didn't really have an answer because I said both, because both of the numbers match, I guess. Then I said no solution, so you can't really like solve it.
Okay. That's an.
Because if you add 3, then it's like 0.
So yeah, we can still, if you want to, you can still add 3 to both sides. And we can get a different statement. So whichever of these two statements you have, they will mean the same thing as far as our answer goes. It's true that we can't come up with a single solution because our variable is gone. But that leaves us with two options. Either it's going to be no solution or we're going to come up with all real numbers. Lexi?
No solution.
Because?
0 can't be less than 0.
Wonderful. If the statement you end up with does not make sense, then it's no solution. 0 can't be less than 0. That's what this statement is saying. Negative 3 cannot be less than negative 3. That doesn't make sense. If you end up with a false statement or a statement that does not make sense, there's no solution. This only happens if your variable cancels out on both sides. If you end up with a true statement, this is like totally separate. If you end up with a true statement, like 0 is less than 1, that's when it would be all real numbers. If you end up with a true statement, it's all real numbers. If you end up with a false statement, there's no solution when your variable goes away completely. Alright, on number 12, the first thing I want to do is get all my variables together and combined. So on the left side, I can just combine those. N plus 8n would give me 9n. 9n is less than or equal to negative 16 plus 5n. Next, I want to get all my variables to the left, which means I have to move this positive 5n. Adrian, how would I move that? How do I undo addition? Subtraction. So I need to subtract that 5n from both sides in order to move it. 9n minus 5n gives me 4n is less than or equal to negative 16. May, what would I do to get n by itself? Divide both sides by a 4. That gives me that n is less than or equal to negative 4. We are ready for a number line. I'm going to count by 2's. And we have to decide, open or close circle. Everybody. Close circle. That wasn't everybody, but we're getting better. Close circle if we've got that equal to bar. Then we have to decide, are we shading left or are we shading right? I hope I heard most people saying left. I was afraid I might have heard someone saying right. This would say n is less than negative 4. Less than, we shade to the left. Number 14. Anyone want to raise their hand and tell me what they would like to do first? Keon. Distribute what?
2, 3,
Alright, we distribute that 2 that's out in front of the parentheses. That would give us 6 minus 4x is greater than 10 minus 4x. Alright, next step. I want all of my variables together. So in order to move a negative 4x, how do I undo subtraction? Everybody. That was not everybody. Everybody. One more time. We'll get this down someday. We are going to add. If we undo subtraction, we use addition. So, on the left side, what happens with our x's? They both cancel out to a 0. That leaves us with 6. On the other side, what happens to our x's? They cancel out. We're left with a 10. Who can read this statement to me? Lexi. 6 is greater than 10. Does that make sense to us? No. So everybody, our answer would be no solution. I'm still not convinced that was everyone, but for the most part, I heard no solution. No solution is our answer. If you get down to just this last step of 6 is greater than 10 and you just leave it there, that's not good enough. You have to tell me that there's no solution.
How did you say?
We're going to do kind of an abbreviated version. All I want is what you got for your inequality. That's all I want. So like n greater than, less than, whatever number. So we got to get through these, because the sooner we get through these, the sooner you get your homework. So who would like to volunteer to tell me what they got for their inequality on number 1? Natalie. N is greater than 1.5. I would agree with that. Your other option was n is greater than 3 over 2. If you left it as a fraction, that's fine. Now if you have questions about how to graph that, come ask me before class tomorrow, after class today, and we will discuss it. But for right now, all I want is what you got for your inequality. All right, on number 3, Ellie, what was your inequality? V is greater than or equal to 2. I would agree with that. If that's not what you got, circle it. We're going to have to come back to it. Number 5, Keon. V is greater than or equal to... Anybody get something slightly different? -8. That 8 should be negative. V is greater than or equal to -8. That's what our inequality should have been. Our graph should have matched it. Number 7. Carl, what did you get? J is less than or equal to 2. How do we feel about that? Good. We should feel good about it. You got to be careful with your signs on that one. J is less than or equal to 2. All right, on this one, what did we get? Jamal? R is less than -7. Okay, so after looking at this a little bit, I believe that once we flip our answer around in the end, we should get R is greater than +7. Okay, if that's not what you got, circle it, ask me about it in a minute. Okay. The sign on that one flips around a lot because of the negative and the R being on the wrong side. Alright, number 11, Deja, what did we get?
No solution.
I disagree. Kian. I disagree with that as well. Ellie. M is greater than 0. I think I might slightly disagree with that one too. We would end up having to divide both sides by a negative. So I believe we should have M as less than 0. The M's don't cancel out. If you don't have the same amount of M's on both sides, they're not going to cancel. Alright, 13, what did we get? Somebody other than Ellie's got to help me out. Carl. X is greater than -2. Do we agree with that? We got a +2. 12, 9, 6. Okay. So on this one, your work might have looked differently, but we should have X is greater than 2.